All right, good evening, everyone. And we are back at Twirl Talk Tuesday after a few weeks off. And you are going to have some wonderful things answered, I think, tonight, because I thought tonight's discussion could be really fun. And it's about twirling as a lifelong sport. And there were so many people that have really invested in the activity and stayed active for such a long time that it was hard to pick how this was going to happen. So the three panelists tonight that I'd like to be able to share their information in the conversation with you are Megan Ekstrom and Mary Fran Dmitek and Jenny Hanna. So welcome all three of you and everyone else in the gallery. And I just anticipate a great discussion. So let's start first with the introductions and what you're doing now. So you are definitely been successful competitive twirlers, but you also have other lives because you've chosen to do it through high school, college, and beyond. So Megan, what do you do and what is your life beyond twirling?
The main thing in my life beyond twirling is I am a forensic scientist with the Phoenix Police Department. I just here achieved my lifelong dream of becoming a DNA analyst. So I analyze evidence from crimes that occur in the city of Phoenix, process it for the DNA that's there, and then interpret who could possibly be a contributor.
And you just proved that twirlers are smart. So I love that that's your job. Mary Fran, we just talked about yours. We have followed you around the world in different places, and you have lived so many different places. So Mary Fran, please tell us what you're up to right now.
So currently, right now, I actually work for the USO. I'm a USO military transition specialist. So what I do is I currently help out service members and military spouses get out of the military into the civilian world, which some people are like, oh, it can't be that bad. It's a major change for them. I mean, they're used to getting told when to eat their breakfast and what clothes to put on, and now they have to create their own schedule. So like it is a big difference for them. So I'm a transition specialist, so I help them from 8 different areas. So pretty much anything that you think involves with employment, education, even healthcare. I mean, anything that's going to be able to help them out. I'm pretty much give them that little lifeline resources to be able to help them out. So I currently do that. I still teach on the side. And then also, as a few of you know already, I will be a first-time mom in January. So I'm dealing with that, going through that little change in process with our family. So our family's growing too, but I am a military spouse and a transition specialist.
Your ability to adapt to the situations that you've been in have been really fun to watch. So to watch you turn this into a career, I think is just amazing. It's a great tribute to who you are and the flexibility and the discipline you've lived with. And Jenny, tell us what you do away from the gym and the twirling world.
I'm an instructor at the University of Tennessee in Chattanooga in the Health and Human Performance Department. I teach 2 online sections of personal health, and then I teach a class called Concepts in Wellness, and then several exercise-based classes, one that's called Fitness Walking. It's really fun. And then I teach a beginning ballet class. Normally, all of them except the personal health are in person, but right now for this fall semester, I am Zooming. I'm actually teaching the ballet class in my hallway. And I teach also in the rec center. I teach a Pilates class. And I coach the majorettes at the university. We're having band. We're not having football, but we are having the band class. And then I also teach primary dance. I teach ballet to 3 to 5-year-olds. I really enjoy them. And then I also teach some twirling. I'm mainly doing that on Zoom right now.
Wonderful. Well, I think that you all prove the ability to multitask in what our athletes learn as they're growing up. And we have several people on this call that have chosen to stay in twirling long into their adulthood. So I think tonight's discussion is about why do that, how do that, what are some of the funny things, what are the hard things. So let's go ahead and start with Megan. Why have you continued twirling? What has inspired you to keep going in adulthood?
I'm kind of a funny case in that when I was in my last semester of college, I actually quit competitive twirling because I was starting my internship at the lab, and I knew I didn't have enough time in my life to graduate college, start my internship, make the impression I needed to make, hopefully one day get hired, success, and then also be a top level competitive twirler. So I actually stopped in 2009 and I came back in the fall of 2015. Part of it was that for me was that I had lost a lot of skills over those 7.5 years of not actually really paying attention to what I was doing. You know, put a thumb throw in the air, it lands 20 feet away from where I wanted it. And I was really kind of upset with that, but it was also the opportunity to compete in International Cup and just to kind of have control of the end of my career again. I didn't like where I left off in 2008, so it was a chance to kind of take back the narrative and try again. And I haven't regretted it at all. It's been really great.
I think that's a great lesson. I love the phrase to take back the narrative, that you got to control how you were going to do this. Mary Fran, what's been your incentive for staying competitive and staying active? Why?
For me specifically, from traveling from state to state to state, you have to make new friends. You learn a new atmosphere and everything, being able to adapt. Twirling was my way to help me adapt to that new setting. For me, it was also a stress reliever. Like some people clean the stress, like to relieve their stress. Me, it was twirling. It was throwing the baton up in the air. If it hits the floor, it hits the floor at that time. Like it was just something to relax me. But also for me, growing up, I twirled since I was 7. My 2 older sisters twirled as well. But for me personally, I'm going to say click with twirling, like, oh, this is why this does this type deal. Didn't happen until I was in college. Like that little click of, I feel comfortable about myself. I feel happy with what I'm doing more. Like it just clicked for me. Twirling clicked for me at a very later stage in my life. And I didn't feel like I was done. I wanted to continue. I wanted to push on and go and see what else I can do. I was fortunate enough to be on the Modernettes and have gone to world championships with them, but I never had the opportunity to do an individual event at a world championship or an international cup. And my goal was to get there. So for me personally, I wanted to push. I wanted to get there. And luckily, I was able to get there. And me having that, I was happy. I was enjoying life. And I wanted to continue it. There was no reason for me to stop. I was still healthy. I was still happy. I was still enjoying life. So I just continued it. Why stop something that you are happy with, that you enjoy?
And I've loved that you have. You've been a blessing in the entire experience. So Jenny, tell us why you've pushed so hard for so long at the highest levels of competition. Why do it?
I think that, everybody has their passion in life and something that they love so much. And twirling is mine, or, like a painter, that's what they love to do. I just truly love to twirl. And I love just twirling, and I love the process of it. I love having a program or a routine, and having a vision with it and practicing. And I love the process of then taking that and trying to put your best out there. And then I love being with the twirling world. I just love everything about it. And one of the things I love about twirling the most is that you can never know everything. You can always keep learning. No matter how well you did, you can always make something better, or you can keep trying to fix the things that you're not the best at. And I just love that.
So tell me, has there ever been a time that you wanted to quit?
No, I just truly love it.
Okay.
Great joy in my life.
Yeah, no, that is so fun to hear, and why do it. So Mary Fran, tell me actually what's easier about being an older twirler than it was when you were younger?
So I think for me personally, when you're a younger twirler, like your mindset is always, not saying it's not now, but you always want to win. You put all that stress and pressure on yourself to win, to get to that point, to make sure that you have that best routine. And once you get older, not saying winning's not everything. Me growing up, I was just like, I want to do my job. I want to be happy with my performance. And as you get older, it's more of a realization for you, because you have to counter in so many other life, adulthood functions that you have to do day to day. So you don't necessarily have the time in the gym all the time like you did when you were a kid. But once you get to that adult point, you kind of realize I need to do what's best for me, what makes me happy. So me doing that best routine is winning. I will never forget my first time I was at UTSA, and I did my adult solo. I was thrilled with my performance, and everyone's like, "Oh, you did awesome," all that kind of stuff. And everyone's like, "Oh, you should place ball," and I was like, "I don't care. That I did my job. I was happy with that." And then finding out the results, it was Chris Wembley, then Jenny Hanna, and then myself. And to me, that was winning. Even though it wasn't that first place, I was perfectly fine with that. I was happy with my performance and everything that I did. That to me, that was winning. So that was definitely a change.
Do you think that your goals changed as you grew up?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, like, yes, being there with your trophy and everything when you're younger, I mean, that's your dream. But once you get older, it's more the fact of what makes me happy and what makes me reach my goals.
Okay.
For like International Cup and doing the Grand Prix, yes, you want to win, but you want to do your performance. You want to do what's best for you and that best outcome. And if that means you place top 10, that's awesome. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, for me, yes, as you get older, your goals and dreams do change.
Okay. And so, Megan, other than the obvious, what is more difficult? Go ahead and delineate the things that are more difficult as you get older to stay in twirling.
The biggest thing for me has been finding the time. At the end of the day, when it comes down between work and baton, unfortunately, work wins. Work pays for the house and for the baton trips and for the costumes and for everything else. So making sure that I'm not sacrificing my performance at work to better baton is really, really hard, because I always kind of want to throw it out the window, because baton's most of the time more fun than work. There's a lot more administrative stuff that's exhausting. So for me, the biggest thing is balancing the mental and physical energy, and kind of giving myself a break. If I try to practice during the week and it just doesn't go well because I am physically exhausted, trying to just give myself the pass and be like, you know what, we did it today. We went through the motions. So that way the muscle memory is still there when we get to the weekend, and I get to really work on the details and spend all my time on it.
So do you think your practice is more refined now as an adult, that you have to make better use of your time? Do you practice more efficiently now than you did as a younger athlete?
I don't really know if I'd say it was more efficient. I've cheated my entire life and had my mom with me at almost every practice. My first year or so back competing, I only practiced with my roommate. But then I realized I have a lot of errors that we need to fix, and a lot of them I can't feel because they feel right to me. So I need eyes on me. So I've always had my mom with me at practice whenever I can. So I kind of.
Can you say that again? I think that what you just said is so important, because you just hit a note about like the way you've done it, always done it, feels right. So you need those eyes to let you correct how you've always done it.
Yeah, like I said earlier, my thumb throws were off. And we actually kind of figured out that for years I was kind of cutting my tosses so that they were completely out of control. And it feels so correct to me to do it wrong. Not anymore. We've worked on it for about 2 years now, so they don't feel, it feels wrong when I do it wrong. But in the beginning, if you're trying to fix some piece of technique like that, it's going to feel right to you. And if you don't have somebody going, nope, try it again, and helping you learn how to feel it correctly, then you're just going to continually repeat that mistake over and over again. So mom's willing to sit with me, and I'm willing to have her voice there.
That's a great tip. I think what you just said is really good, because as you all have spent years doing it, of course, you've built your own techniques and you've built your own ways of doing things. So that makes perfect sense. So Jenny, is there a situation in competitions that if we were going to encourage athletes to keep twirling into their more adult years. What are things in competitions that happen that you think could make it more comfortable for people to stay involved?
Gosh, I'll have to think about that. I really just kind of approach things like I always have. So for me, there's no issue of staying involved. I think, and this would be true, if I was going to improve something like helping, but it'd be more like for younger athletes too. If there was ever a way that we could schedule nationals till it didn't run till like 11 or 12 o'clock at night and then get up so much earlier, I think that would be healthier for all athletes, because I think we kind of get run down as the week goes. I was thinking about the earlier, that'd be the thing.
Okay. Physically, what have been the challenges for you and how have you addressed them? Because you're amazing at the age that you are, doing all of the things that a lot of people gave up on eons ago. How have you been able to stay so physically conditioned and active?
Well, I was thinking about this question earlier. I think that for one thing, I've always tried to take really good care of myself. So even since I was like in 9th grade, I have seen a chiropractor and a massage therapist. And I think that's helped me have longevity, because when we're twirling, sometimes, do a lot of illusions and you may need some help. I've also focused on technique for a long time. And I don't just mean baton technique, I mean like body alignment. And I think by having focused on that, that's helped prevent possibly some injuries. And really, you just have to believe you can. I think people get hung up in age too much. Just because you hit another birthday doesn't mean you can't do that third illusion. I just never stopped. And I'm working on more things, that people haven't seen yet. So you just keep believing and you can do it.
Mm-hmm. And how do you approach it, Mary Fran, from a physical standpoint? How have you addressed any physical challenges?
So as we get older, we obviously know that our bodies are not saying well fit as a 16-year-old, but your body, the muscles and stuff start to get sore more. I know for me, doing that change with adult trying to twirl and try to work and everything else, you do have to have the balance in there of, yes, you do have to physically train your body as well. Like Jenny said, you got to concentrate on your body and the techniques of with twirling and without twirling to keep yourself healthy. Because once you do get older, yes, if you have an injury, it's probably going to take a little bit longer to make that full recovery to come back. Like I know if my body starts to hurt, okay, why is it hurting? Am I doing something wrong with twirling? Or is it just a simple way of, hey, maybe I'm sitting too long, or maybe I didn't stretch this muscle out properly. Like you got to take back and say what's hurting and reevaluate it. Whereas when you're kind of a little bit younger, you're like, okay, I'm just going to stretch this out a little bit and go on because it's not going to be as painful. But yes, as you get older, you got to like really think about taking care of your body as a whole, not necessarily twirling, but also that physical part of it as well. Like I know once I hit a certain point, it's like, okay, yeah, I have to go on that elliptical or that bike or that treadmill for 2 miles every day, or do a little bit of lifting just to try to keep your body in shape to help better your twirling, but also help better yourself, like on a healthier standpoint and physically.
Well, I always kind of figured if I stopped, everything would lock up. So, so it's like kind of keep it going. And I was in a, near fatal accident which was actually the end of my twirling career, but I survived because I was a twirler. And so Megan, I know you've gone through some health challenges, and do you feel like twirling was your saving grace?
Okay. So to be perfectly honest, for people that don't know, in October of 2018, I had a tumor in my kidney rupture. I was internally hemorrhaging for 2 weeks. And the day before I turned 33, they took my kidney out. There was a high probability of me like bleeding out on the table. And they actually said the surgery was supposed to take like 4 to 5 hours. It took 2.5. And they said part of the reason that it went so smoothly and they didn't have to do a transfusion or anything was because I was so fit. And that was all a response to, I've sprained my ankle twice since I came back. The second time I started doing physical therapy at a place, that when my physical therapy was done, I transitioned and started working with a personal trainer. And ever since then, I've gotten better core control, things that I never considered as a child. And because I had all that and I was in like my best physical shape, probably even considering my physical shape as a child, that whole situation went so smoothly and there were absolutely no incidents. They built me up for this big thing. And after 2.5 months, I was able to get back on it. And actually the finals of IC last summer was the 9-month anniversary of my surgery. And just being able to go out on the floor and do it, if I hadn't been fit and twirling, I don't know what would have happened with that whole situation.
And watching you through that, I mean, you can tell that the discipline and the training of the activity really helped you thrive through that. So those are the intangible rewards. So let's take a discussion a little bit that's out there a lot when we're trying to encourage younger twirlers all the time. And I want to know your thoughts on maybe a master's division or something, because the hard part is, how do you as adults and champions go against some of these younger kids? And how do we keep these younger kids going when it's like I'm not going to wait till I'm 35 to win again? Like, how do we balance that so that we can encourage our younger twirlers and still keep our adult twirlers? All right. So Jenny, how do you feel about a master's division or that conundrum that we have?
Well, I was really thinking about this a lot. As someone that competes on the elite level, like nationally and internationally, what my goal is always to help my goal to reach my best performance and try to be at, the cutting edge of whatever's happening. So I really value the opportunity to be able to compete with the best of the best. So I like having a final that's all together. Like if you look at, the statistics, usually the people that are like sitting at the top are probably in the top of the senior division and often some in the adults. So I really value that opportunity to compete all together. I think that in USTA now we've sort of brought back the divisionals, and I think that's a good thing. It used to be called divisionals and it was a big deal, like the juvenile, divisional, junior. And now I think it's really nice that they do have the overall. I know as a little girl, I mean, it never bothered me. I always was excited to compete with the older girls. And the other thing I was going to say on this is I don't really look at age or, or think when I look at a twirler, whether they're 15 or they're 28, I really look at what they're doing and their skills and appreciate that, and I don't really get hung up on the age, and so that's kind of how I approach it.
And I appreciate your philosophy and where it comes from. And so Mary Fran, you're a nurturer, and so tell me your thoughts about building our younger twirlers while not feeling defeated going against people that have been champions over and over. How do we balance that?
Bluntly honest, it's not an easy balance for anyone, because I mean, personally, when you think of that age group and then you're like, okay, I'm competing against people that are now going to be like your Emily Perkins or even your Lexi Dudas and now even Allie Dudas and stuff, your mind just is like their skill and their capability of baton twirling in their body is elite level. But for me, it's like Jenny said, it's not so much age. You look at their skill and you see what they have and it's like, okay, what can I do? What can I make myself better? Or what can I do that they can't do to help balance that out? To help and get those younger kids to continue and push, you got to show them that drive. I know for me, one of the other reasons why I continued to twirl, and I had the lucky advantage of going across country because of being a military spouse, was when I go to those competitions, most of the time, it's my first time seeing these younger kids. So I have no idea who they are. They have no idea who I am, but them seeing an older adult, an older athlete still twirling, you see the little sparkle in their eyes, like, if she can do it, I want to do it too. And having that drive and being able to see them, it's like you're like the own little inspiration type mentor of, yes, you can do this too, continue to do it? Is there like a right or wrong way to say, yes, we need to do this to help the younger twirlers? No, because everyone's a little bit different. But truthfully, being there as an older athlete just to inspire them to continue to move on. And when they come off from a performance that it wasn't the greatest performance, but something good came out of that performance, they still did it. They took that action no matter how bad they were feeling about it, something good was about it. And that's what you have to work off of. Yes, there are times that you want to say, oh, this wasn't right, you need to do this instead. You got to look at the positive things too. And I think we definitely need to do that with our younger athletes of saying, hey, this didn't work, but this did too. And we're so happy that this worked out for you for this routine or that event or whatever they're doing, because that's what's going to push them. Like, yes, you're going to have like that little list on the side of what to fix. But then you also need to have that list of what did they achieve? What came out of that performance? So we definitely need to push that and just be kind of there as like the little like inspiration lifelong coach there.
That's wonderful. And I think that the people that have chosen to continue are there for the right reasons. So, you know, to be able to carry that on and spread that message is really important. Megan, if you were going to talk to anyone from a recreational standpoint, and I didn't share this with you guys to think about, so I'm kind of, blinding you with this question. So how would you like to try to encourage more athletes to stay or start even into adulthood to take up twirling?
That's a great question that I had no prepped answer for. No, for me, the biggest benefit of it, especially after taking those 7.5 years off, is I just noticed the weight gain, the watching my body kind of deteriorate in front of me. Being able to stay active is great, not only physically, but mentally. The amount of good work this has done for my mental health, because I do have a couple different mental health conditions, that the amount that it's helped that, and it's helped me transition in this part of my life. I had a roommate, my roommate moved out, my whole life like kind of shifted when I like started living by myself again, and still having baton to be that balance for me, be that outlet. It's so great. When you're leaving college and starting to live in the adult world, it's such a big transition. If you have your baton twirling to be your constant, to be that thing there that you know how to do, it's a regular thing for you going to competitions. And even just going out and practicing, even if you're not competing, it can be such like a great transition tool that helps you deal with the struggles in a very cathartic way, I guess.
I think that's pretty much a common thread, even between the coaching, judging, athlete world, that we watch what's happening in the rest of the world, and our lives can change with, deaths and weddings and divorces and babies and all of this stuff. But one constant for several people is the twirling world. And so even through COVID, the ability to have all of the Zoom and online activities that we've done has been it's been very cohesive. It's really brought a world of people together, that when the rest of the things were going on out there, it's like to sit with twirling people and get educated and informed and stay in contact, I think really made a difference. I'm going to open the gallery now because we have several people here, and open it to see if there are any questions that anyone has. I can see most of you, but if you have a question, let me know. And I want to know from anyone that's in the group, that when you have that kid that's in junior high and says, oh, I'm getting too old, I need to quit when I'm in high school, what's your advice for that? Anybody jump in? Okay.
I'll jump in.
Go ahead, and then Lou.
All right, so it happens. I mean, when I originally, my first university that I went to was Marshall University, which most people did not know what Marshall University was. But in West Virginia, in that area, the twirling world was actually big with the younger kids. And then once they got to that high school age, they're like, okay, I'm done after this. And I'm like, but why? what makes you want to stop? And they're like, well, I'm too old. And I'm like, that's not a reason. What truthfully makes you want to stop? And they couldn't give me an answer. I'm like, before saying yes and packing the batons and putting them in the closet, seriously think and sit down and go, what makes me want to stop it? And what makes me enjoy it? What makes me happy with it? And then once they go through that process, they realize there is no reason to stop. Maybe they only competed during football games or did band events. And they're thinking, oh, that's where it needs to end. But for some of those kids, you're like, no, there's another side to twirling. Let's jump into that side, because most of them in West Virginia, it was just more of the fact of, we're going to compete during band season, and that was it. They never really got into that individual twirling competition setting. So once they realized that there was so much more out there and so much more that they can do and that they're capable of, that's when they wanted to continue. I think a lot of people just stop and think, I can't do anymore, there's nothing else, but there really is.
So do you think that the competitive world is helpful for that?
Absolutely. Because
finding your own niche, finding your way.
You got to find your own way into it a little bit. And like some of them, they were like, I have no idea what this is. And it's okay. You start out with that open competition. Mm-hmm. See how that is and work your way up.
I'm going to ask Rita a question, then come back to Lou. So Rita, you're in a high powered job and you've been competing at a high level. How have you balanced it out?
It's definitely been difficult, but I think the hardest part of practice is starting practice, because once you've started, it's hard to stop. But it's just that motivating yourself to go from work to start practice, and then once you can get through that, it's difficult. And I struggle with some depression and that kind of thing. So having baton, even if it hasn't been the most consistent practice, still having it there has helped a lot with.
Yeah, it's the way the world goes away. You can go to practice and the world goes away. So Lou, I had started to say something about keeping kids involved when they think that they're too old. What is your advice for that?
Well, we're in the section of Kentucky where we don't see any older baton twirlers. In fact, I'm the only one in this area. We're not near UK. We're not near Louisville. U of Western has the young lady that twirls for IC, and then Murray State has one, and Austin P might have one, but none of these kids in Christian County see them. So I get all these kids, and of course we take gymnastics and baton. I mean, you walk in gymnastics and you see a bucket of batons. So in an hour and a half, you touch a baton, no matter if you're working back tucks or back handsprings, you still touch a baton. So until about 6th grade, we do really well. And then when they hit the middle school and high school, of course, all they see is cheerleading. So if I don't have them having a niche and they don't like 1 baton, 2 baton, or 3 baton, or like pairs, or find something, they're the greatest marcher in Kentucky or something by 6th grade, I'm losing them. So as they, and a lot of kids look at it this way, oh, well, oh, they're good, they're Miss Lou's level, they know Jenny Hanna, and they know several of you and different ones. Oh, yeah, they're great. We're not that level. So I have to break it down and say, but you can be. You see Carissa Willoughby do a round-up backhand, you can do that. You just throw a baton and do it. I've had kids stand out here on the patio and do all those great tricks and lay it down and walk off.
Finding things that they can succeed at as they're at that level.
Their niche, like their event. Mm-hmm. One of your questions that you asked, that when I went to California and started twirling with Leanne Aramaki, I had done 1, 2, 3 -1 strut, USTA, and I had never went back. I had just done those focused events and traded out after you got older. They hadn't mentioned it, but after I got older, I had to drop off events because of money. I had to start choosing which event, because my practice time was shortened. My money was shortened. I couldn't do 5 events at $75 or whatever it cost. So I had to trade out. So when I went to California, Leanne, I was getting ready for one of the big competitions, and it was one of those where you pay and you get to play. You get to do all you want to. She said, well, try to win a special award, be in the marching. I said, you want me to march, do the box again? She said, you do the march 12 times a week. You should be the best marcher in the country. They teach it every week. So I went back down and I did military and I did box and I did whatever other event they had. I even went and did modeling. And it made me go back in my thinking and my training and realize how much I was making those 4, 5, 6, 8-year-olds, novices, really think about and go out on that floor. And here I was nervous, and I've been doing it, you know, when I was 10 years old, it was the last time.
It all comes back. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had to.
Jenny, you had something.
Yeah, I have something that kind of goes back to a couple of questions ago when you were talking about encouraging people to twirl through life. And it's kind of a special story, but I have a friend that, well, she's probably in her 50s, and she was part of the twirling group that I grew up in. She was an older girl, so I didn't really know her. But last year she showed up at band day for UTC, where the high school twirlers come, because her husband is a band director. And she was, I said, well, do you want to learn the routine? And she did. And she has multiple sclerosis. So just a few years ago, she couldn't walk. And so we said, oh, well, you know, you come, we let her perform in the back. And she said that was like the best day of her life. So, but now she contacted me, and she's learning a solo. She's going to do an online competition this weekend. But she's sort of an inspiration that for her, it's almost like a therapy. And she's pushing through boundaries, because she wasn't even supposed to be walking. And she told me recently her doctor wanted her to be doing some exercise. He always says, what exercise are you doing? And now she said, oh, I'm twirling. I'm going to be entering a competition.
That's such a fun story. And I think maybe the online competitions are somewhat of a way for some of our older population to get back in. And maybe that's an incentive in some of these online competitions. One of the funnest lessons I ever gave, one of my friends gave her girlfriend a baton lesson with me. So 3 of them came and met me at the gym, and it was like her 60th birthday. And I gave the 3 of them a twirling lesson, and it was a wonderful day. So Kathy, I'm going to pick on you a second, Kathy Forsyth, because you've taught every level, every age. Tell me the gifts about working with athletes who are adults.
Well, I think when they're adults, they become more focused and more serious about the sport, because they wouldn't be there if they weren't. It's not because their friends are doing it or they're part of a core team or whatever. But I also think you find a mental sharpness in twirlers that are older, because they're able to now think it out, and instead of just going automatically like a robot through their skills, they actually learn, or they're able to analyze what they do, why something isn't working. And so when you get them to that point, then you know that should they go into the coaching role, they're going to be great coaches, because now they have learned the skill of being able to fix things and recognize when things aren't correct. And there are so many really good twirlers that never reach that point. So they are great twirlers, but they're not great coaches. And quite frankly, in this sport, we need to have more coaches, because we would have more twirlers if we had more coaches. But you know, we just don't have enough of them. So I think that's always the biggest joy to me, is to see that process is happening and where it could lead in the future.
So when you've had athletes that are between junior high and high school, what would be the most impactful thing you would say to them when they're trying to balance out going into high school and feeling like they can't do everything and they want to quit? What is your statement to them? And you can't convince anyone of anything unless they want it. But what is your statement to them about staying involved?
I think the greatest result in twirling comes from being able to perform at a university or a college, where I just remember having auditions at the University of Washington, and I had a very world high-level athlete who was auditioning against one of my lesser advanced athletes. And it was actually the lesser advanced athlete who got that featured position, which really shocked everyone. But it just, anyone who has the right skills and the right performance can be so successful at the college level. And yes, they may announce your titles and whatever, but at the end of the day, the crowd doesn't care. They don't care what you've won and what you haven't won. It's what you show them that day. And every twirler has the opportunity and the skill level to be able to reach that point if they want to work towards it.
No,
because only one person can be the Grand National solo champion, but you know, there are any number of colleges that are gonna love to have you there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Mary Frances, what are some surprising things that you can do as an adult that were harder as a youngster?
So when I was thinking about this one earlier today, it was a little bit difficult, but one thing that I definitely learned more as an adult, and I think we can all agree on this, was definitely one is time management. Because I mean, my being travel all over the country and stuff, my facility locations and stuff are very limited. So it was hard to say, okay, yes, I have to be up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I got to be at the gym at 5:30 and I have an hour. What am I going to do within that hour? So definitely your time management skills definitely kick into gear once you come in adulthood, because besides your facility issues, then you run into what my work schedule. Then for me specifically, what about my home life, being a wife, being a military spouse? I mean, you gotta put all those factors in together to be able to time management, what you need to do specifically for yourself and to make sure that you're doing your job on the other end. Other issues, that not saying issues, but things that I realized as more as an adult than what I did as a kid was definitely the heart factor. I always loved the sport, but then once you get older, you do have the days of, why do I do this? Should I continue to do this? And when you reflect and you look at things that you've done in the past and why you still do it, it's the heart factor. I mean, I think that's why everything's great. And like Ms. Forsythe said earlier, of that child who tried out for University of Washington and stuff, it wasn't the top athlete. It was that younger athlete that did a better job. And it's probably because she had more of the heart for the sport, but then also for the university too. Like I tell a lot of like our younger kids, they're like, but I'm not good as so-and-so. I'm like, but what makes you good? What makes you better? And for me, I wasn't necessarily growing up that person who was going to win Grand Nationals or that person that was going to win Miss Major. What people known me for over the years was the heart factor of, I did it because I loved it. I love myself and I love the sport. So what can I do to help better myself in the sport and to continue it? I mean, looking at past college experiences, I would never trade them for anything. Once I got accepted to Marshall, everyone's like, why Marshall? It's such a small school. And I'm like, but watch and see what happens. And now twirlers are going to that school because one, they're like, you went there. Like, that's why I want to go there. And I'm like, well, I'm glad I brought that to the table for you, because I never would have thought that. And then when I went to Baylor, looking at the little kids and like their eyes of, I want to twirl too. How can I get into it? It makes you feel better about yourself. And once you get older, you start to realize that, yes, it's, like I said earlier, not about the crowns and the trophies and the sashes. It's what you do for you. But then seeing the little sparkle in the little kids' eyes just make it even better.
So don't you think that moment when it changes, that you're doing it for the heart of it rather than the win, that defines everything? And that makes the experience so much different. So Megan, do you remember the moment when you started doing it for yourself instead of your mother? And I ask this because like I was the one who, we all had, most of us are there because we had hard moms to begin with that, helped us make sure we practiced. And I remember the moment when I had to beg her to come out to watch because it was for me then instead of her. Megan, with a mom that's a coach, do you remember the moment that it was for you instead of your mom?
Day one. I'm going to call her out on this and she's going to hate me for it. She never wanted me to twirl.
Really?
knew what
Oh, I understand that. My daughter did not twirl. I get it.
it took to be a top level athlete. She knew the fights that she had with her mom during practice, and she did not want to put me through it. In fact, when I was born, baton wasn't part of our life. She got back into baton around, I don't know, when I was like, I know I started twirling the first time at 7, so it might have been a little bit before that. And then I started competing. And then as a 7-year-old, I wasn't winning, so I stopped because I was 7. And then I started twirling again when I was 9. And smartly, because she knew I had those issues about not winning, she put me in 2 baton and extra as my first 2 events as a 9-year-old, because what other 9-year-old is insane enough to do that? Oddly enough, we found my niche of multiple batons very early on. But yeah, it was every single competition. We'd get in the car afterwards and she'd say, "Are we done now?" And the answer was, "No, we're still going." It was her idea, kind of, this time for me to start twirling, and that she texted me and she was like, "Alex and I think you should try out for IC." And I was like, "You're crazy." Took a shower, came out and went, "Yeah, let's do that." So it's always been for me.
Okay. That's fun to hear. Okay, so Jenny, how have you evolved from a young competitor into the adult? Like, were you always the driving force, or has it evolved over time?
I guess I'd say I'm always the driving force. If you mean like my mom's my best friend and my best supporter in the world, but I'm the one that's always done it from the very beginning. She'll be there to support me, but she's never the one pushing me to do anything. Mm-hmm. But if I was going to say what's gotten easier, for me over time, I think I'm better able to handle the stress of the competition. I kind of know how things work now, and I'm very much a list maker. So I know what I need to do to be ready. For example, like when I'm about to go on the floor, I don't want anybody to come chat to me, because that is not what I need. So I know those kind of little things that work for me best.
Yeah, and I think that as you become experienced, between Paige and I, we start to understand the athletes, and we understand who needs a hug and who needs to be left alone, and who needs all of the rituals and traditions that people have as far as getting ready to go on the floor. So my final thought, and what I would like to do, is how do we grow this? How do we encourage later participation and even adult participation? So I'm kind of inspired as we're talking tonight, even with the online competition, to have the novice adult and the classes and things like that. Mary Frances, have you thought anything, now that I've thrown it at you, have you thought anything about how do we get more people?
So I think just continue, like we try to do, continue to grow our sport, and just continue by, once those kids do hit a certain point of, should I continue or should I not? Not saying push them, because obviously we want them to continue, but try to show them and express to them the benefits of continuing. Like we said before, it's not necessarily about winning and losing all the time. It's what makes you happy, and showing them that you can still do this. You can even win and you can still be happy. We need to continue that, but then also try to, like we said earlier, with the online competitions now and the online classes, showing that you can be a beginner or a novice person enjoying this sport. That's what's so great about our sport. It's not like, I'm going to use an example because my nephews are playing baseball and football, but you start those sports at a young age and you continue them. It's not like you have to start at a young age. You can start at any age with this sport. And that's what makes our sport so special and so great, is that, yes, if you need to take time off, you can take time off and you can always come back. Yes, it might be a little bit more of a struggle to come back, but you can still come back. You can still continue it. So definitely doing the classes online, or once COVID stops, classes in person. The online competitions, I think, are fabulous right now for all ages. Mm-hmm. But then also, like we kind of went over a little bit, having that master's division to say, if you're afraid to compete against, yes, those younger 18 to 22-year-old kids, you can still do it. Mm-hmm. You can still compete at a higher level if you want to, and still compete at the age that you're grouped it with. So I do think of having that will definitely inspire more kids to continue on, because a lot of kids look at, okay, like MBTA, it's 16 plus. So you're competing against 16-year-olds and you're 20 some, 30 some years old. And it's like, wow. And then with USTA, I mean, stuff, I believe it's 22. I lost track once you hit that 22 mark. You don't really, but you realize that age, and it's hard and it's difficult, especially like for me, like Sabrina Smith, Madison Eyes, and like Addie Bebo, they call me mom because I'm always there for them. And if they need something, I'm there. So they call me mom. And that's when it kind of clicks of, yes, you're getting old, but hey, you can still do this. You can still compete against them. But I know for some people, when they see that age bracket of this age between this, they stop because they're like, I can't do anymore. So maybe having that extra division of saying, hey, you can still push this. You can still do this because it makes you happy and we want you to do it. Maybe that can help in making kids continue, and also showing them that it is possible.
Well, maybe even, you know, I'm kind of brainstorming as we're sitting here talking, and maybe even from a recreational standpoint, you know, maybe one of the limitations and things that's a little intimidating is the whole costume situation. And so what if you had a recreational division that there was no, you're not going to wear a costume. Like, you can wear leggings and a top, and maybe we could create a division that allows the opportunity for everything. There's room for everything. I always say that when people are fighting over students and coaches and things like that, there's room for all. And I think that if we want to encourage adults to continue twirling, maybe not at the level that you all have done, and most everyone on this call, that's hard. You guys know, from a financial standpoint, from a costume standpoint, from all of that, what if you just love to twirl, but you don't want to be that competitive? Maybe we need to find a way to open the door for that. So Jenny, do you see a way in your classes at UTC? Are there any adult classes and things like that that would encourage that?
Well, you know, actually, and it's been a while. I didn't have a lot of people come, so I'm not teaching that now. In the rec program, I currently teach a Pilates class, and there was one time a long time ago I taught a beginning baton twirling, and I did have a couple of people show up, and they had so much fun. But I was thinking, as you were talking, I would love to teach like a beginning adult baton twirling class, and you know, like where I teach the primary dance class, there's a adult beginning ballet is a very popular class. Like, that class is full and people love to do it. So I kind of look on this to be kind of the same thing, something that people would.
Well, I think if you just look at the numbers of our sport, how many people do we all run into every day? Oh, I used to twirl. Oh, I used to twirl. And those people that would do it just for exercise. So I think that the people on this call, and I'm going to call on Audrey real quick because you have a studio. And Audrey, do you see a calling to have an adult class in your studio?
I don't know. I've been, you know, I've been listening and thinking, and I don't know, maybe I can't tell you how many kids I have that parents twirled. And I don't know, maybe they'd like to. I've only come across it twice where I've had a phone call and say, you know, I'm in my 40s, but I used to twirl and I saw you in a parade. And do you think if I brought my baton, you know, to you, you could show me some stuff? And we did, but it didn't last. So I really wasn't sure where to go with it, to tell you the truth. But I don't know. I've never offered it, but I don't know. Now that I'm listening to all of this, I'm thinking, wow, that might be kind of fun. Actually, I might do it myself.
Right. And Pete, can I intrude on you a little bit? And so what are your thoughts on the whole adult twirling?
If you want to do it is the way I look at it. I actually belong to a service organization here in Knoxville called Akima. And we have a group that twirl, but we don't get together often. We do a couple of parades. And this was my first year, this last winter, of participating with it. And these gals are just a hoot. And they had the best time. We had one who was 83, who marched in 2 4-mile parades. I was exhausted, and she's still hopping around behind me. It was just a lot of fun. So this COVID thing has thrown a wrench into everything when you think about it. And even though you can do things at home, it's just not the same. I know, if you don't know, some people know Gail Bordner, who's a friend of mine. She's in North Carolina, and she had just started a new adult group in the Hickory, North Carolina area when, again, COVID hit, and she lost her gym. She lost it all. But that group, they were sending me videos. And I started teaching a beginning class for children at a local studio last fall. And again, I'm not in the studio. I'm having to teach from home because I can't be in the studio yet. Anyway, Gail was sending me her videos of her classes. And I was doing what she was doing, not with them, but, you know, behind them, just for fun. So it is fun. And I think anybody can pick it up at any level, not even competitive level, but just for fun. So, you know, it's harder again with, I think it's really hard to teach beginners on Zoom. I think that's the number one thing. You cannot see your hands, because if you do, you look like the giant hands like mine look right now. It's just hard. Advanced ones, yeah, kids who already have some technique, yeah, you can keep carrying on with that a little bit better. But then again, the body work's really hard. But let's go back to the adults. The adults I have been around have just had a ball, and they want to continue. They say, can we do this all year long? That was the first thing they asked me last year. And I didn't start the group. Another friend of mine who twirled with me in college started this group, and she asked me to join along. And they said, can we keep doing this? And I said, yeah, we can make this happen. But then everything fell apart there for a while. So we may try it again. But for fun, yes. For competitiveness, maybe. No, not our group. But you know, there's a group in Nashville. Jenny, do you know about them? Called the A+ Twirlers?
Yeah, I think I've heard of them.
Yeah, they are hilarious, and they are great. And they'll go to competitions around and do things kind of like the group. There's a group, I think, in Florida. Yeah, the Villages. Yeah, much smaller level. But that would be a lot of fun. And I've toyed with that for years. I just never put it all together. So well, maybe, I mean, who knows, tomorrow I could start something new. My husband thinks I'm crazy anyway, so why not?
Well, and I think this the common thread is the passion. And so if nothing from this talk tonight, when we talk about twirling as a lifelong sport, I think that the people that have competed at the top levels, and, you know, using tonight, some of the people on the panel and some of the people in gallery have competed at the top levels in it. But the name of the game is being ambassadors for our activity. You know, my husband is an amazing golfer, and he is a PGA rules official. And I think the thing I admire the most about him is that he is the best ambassador for the sport there ever was. If you were brand new to golf and you'd never picked up a club, he's going to help you along, and he's going to make you fall in love with it. And I think that's our job, you know, that all of us that obviously are here for a reason, and we've done it forever. So if we could be ambassadors for the sport and let people see that twirling into adulthood is a gift, it's not anything to, you know, say, you know, why is she still doing it? Why is he still doing it? Instead, being able to embrace the love of the activity and knowing it's a lifelong sport. And maybe we just need to encourage that. And I really want to thank all of you that showed me tonight and talked about balancing life and balancing activity. Rita, you have a question.
Yeah, it's actually more so a observation from some of the talks.
Yeah.
It's not that, like, we talk about this problem and that problem. It seems like some adults would have there's this problem, there's a facilities problem, and then we could make a list of how we solve the facilities problem. There's a list of where do I start, and then go to this is how we solve it, and just try to figure out, it seems like there's a list of things that adults who might want to go forward with baton have that they have as roadblocks, and maybe figuring out that, okay, we can solve this problem, we can solve this problem. And I mean, we've seen everybody make use of mats in the driveway for now that always used a gym or something to make it easier for people to find the solutions, because they're out there. I know it's harder to find a gym when you get older, but how do you do that? And just a nudge in the right direction might be helpful.
I think what you said is really good. So it's like the roadblocks that are out there, and maybe we as ambassadors for the sport can kind of like ease some of the fears and help with some of the answers and how to overcome some of those roadblocks. So I think what you've said tonight and this discussion has been really inspiring. And that's the aim of these Tuesday Twirl Talks, is just to have fun and talk about things that maybe we haven't been talked about. So I want to thank everyone for participating. I'm really inspired. I'm sitting here thinking about 100 different things and what we can do. And I am so grateful to all of you for staying active in the sport, because the sport only thrives and continues by everyone that carries on. And I think there's so much to be offered by everyone that's participated in this call, and even everyone that's out there that's just going to hear what's going on. So keep spreading goodwill, keep being the ambassadors for the sport. And thank you for participating tonight. Tonight has been a really fun discussion, and I look forward to the next time I get to see and hug on all of you. All right. Thanks everyone so much.
Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Good night.